Hello, I'm Sharon, and this is Abracadabra Sisters. We are exploring creativity by interviewing creative people one at a time and delving into their motives, their stories, and their creations.
So today we have with us Dan Benamor. I'm very excited to talk to him. We worked together on a project together when he produced my podcast for my book through Voyage Media, which shot right up to the top of the podcast world for a little bit of time. It was very exciting. So, and it's still out there. I don't have no idea what's going on there, but we'll have to check it out at some point. But anyway, so Dan, you work in the entertainment industry, um, and right now you're head of podcasts for Voyage Media. So, how did you end up in entertainment?
I was going to be a psychologist, and then I made a terrible mistake, which is I accepted a scholarship to film school. Um, and then, as pretty much as a result of that, I ended up moving to Los Angeles. I became a development executive, like kind of ridiculously quickly. It was a very unusual situation. And in that capacity, I made, I think, like 12 movies. And then I went off and I was on my own just as a screenwriter, and I wrote a couple movies. And then the pandemic happened, and I was, my background is independent film. So the second the pandemic happened, like 5 of my projects died immediately. And then I pivoted into podcasts, and I did my own podcast kind of similar to this one, except mine was movies I love that no one talks about. So I would find, and that was my in, because I would, it would be, you'd reach out to some major screenwriter or producer or director, and it's the movie in their catalog that people were not as hot on that I loved. And so I was able to get some really great guests. And then I had a long-standing professional relationship with Voyage Media, and they wanted to get into the podcast space. And purely because I was the person they knew who was doing it, I think that's the reason that, my former colleague Robert Midas reached out to me, and then we started making them together. And we have we have 56 shows on the channel now on Apple Podcasts over six
Wow, that is
years.
great. That is
So
great.
yeah, it's a
And you're
crazy,
having
crazy amount of content.
you're having a lot of success with them going right to the top and staying there, right?
Yes, and after basically 3 years of courting, we have also now a first look deal with Fox for television, and that came out
Great.
of the podcast stuff. So slowly, we made one movie already based on a podcast, which is coming out in the fall. So that's very exciting as well. So yeah, we have a bunch of cool outcomes, and we hope to continue having more of them.
So the movie's coming out in theaters or on Fox
It's going
television?
to be on streaming, so that's unrelated to Fox. That's
Yeah.
going to
Oh,
be through a company called Angel Studios.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Where
Great.
do the ideas come from for the podcasts?
Well, I mean, Muriel would be a perfect example to tell you about that, because Muriel was one of those ideas, right?
Yeah.
She had a book, and also a screenplay, and it's a really cool high concept idea. And so, using her as a case study, for example, she worked with a great producer, a guy named Adam Prince, who I actually kind of brought to this company. He and I know each other. He wrote a movie I did when I was an executive. And so, working with him, us three together, we sort of fashioned it for dramatic audio, and then made it as a podcast, and then have the ability to cross promote it, across the whole network. And I can't remember, Muriel, do you remember? Was it number 2 or number 3 of all fiction
It
podcasts? Something like
was
that.
it hit number 2 of all fiction podcasts
Yeah.
about a week, I think,
Yeah.
which
That was
was
awesome.
which was pretty cool. I
Yeah.
was
I
so
was really proud of that. Yeah.
I was so happy. It shot right up there.
Yeah.
Within the first day or so, it just went vroom right up to the top and
Yeah.
hung out for a while. It liked that rarefied air, I think.
Yeah. I mean, what I really love about doing this is that, when you work in film development, you sort of know that the overwhelming majority of the films you develop are not actually going to get made. It's just so hard to get a movie made,
Yeah.
and so expensive, and just there's a million factors that have to go your way. But in the podcast stuff we do, we're making it. It's going to be made. We're going to release
Yeah.
it to an audience,
People are
and
going
then
to get to hear it.
yeah, and then you see how the audience reacts too, and you learn
Yeah.
stuff. The more you do it, the better you get at it. The more you have a sense of what works, what doesn't work for the audience. So it's a really cool way to experiment and learn things, and actually like have an audience react to your creativity and sort of prove out your own theory, right? You're like, you think as a creative person, like, I think this is cool, but until you put it up with an audience, you kind of don't know for sure, you know? And so it's a way to
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
imagine writing a podcast is very different than writing a screenplay because it's kind of like the old radio shows. You don't have the visual, it's all audio, it's all up to the imagination of the listener.
Yeah, that's totally correct. The way that we think about it is that the sound, you have to think about the sound as the visual. So, you know, where in film, you're always thinking, how can I visually communicate story? In
Yeah.
audio, it's all about like, how can I use sound to convey something that is going to be emotional or that's going to amplify the listening experience or make you feel like you're there or all that kind of stuff.
Make you feel a wide open sky, for example, or something
Yeah.
like that. Just with
So how does one learn that skill? I
Just
mean, it's
repetition.
kind of like a dead art, and has been for a long time, but
Yeah, it's
it's
like
been
learning to speak
revived.
Latin. Yeah, it's
all
totally.
old things are new again, you know? It's amazing. And they rejigger themselves into a new shape. And here it is, the podcast, which once was a radio show.
Our parents and grandparents grew up on
Mhm.
those
Yeah,
old radio shows, and it's kind of like the same,
back
it's
again.
come back around again. We use it, and I'm sure you have the same skills. You got the people like with the shoes on making
It's
the clunk,
100%
clunk,
correct.
clunk,
Yes.
clunk
No, we
foots.
have, that's so funny. I always, whenever I talk to one of our sound engineers, we did a show called The Hitler File with Peter Stormare and Dennis O'Hare, who are two great character actors. And my sound engineer, he was like, this show is all about the sounds of chairs. So
Yeah,
it's like the squeaks of the chair. That's what he got really fixated on that. So yeah, you need somebody who is like obsessive about that part of it. And
yeah,
you know, in the writing, you want to tee that up, but you also, it's a little bit like comic books. In comic books, the artist is part of the storytelling. It's not separate. It's not like the writer and the artist. It's complete two, you know, the writer is telling the artist, hey, I think it's this. And the artist is like, cool, I'm adding this, this, and that.
We had established our patient-therapist bond, but he remained frustrated at his medical incarceration. He was still there when Kaiser Wilhelm abdicated and Germany surrendered, and the armistice was signed in November 1918. Amidst the general celebration and relief being expressed by all the other patients and staff, Corporal Hitler remained aloof, becoming more and more angered and hysterical. And after the war, he returned to Munich but remained in the army and was appointed as an intelligence agent to infiltrate the German Workers' Party.
yeah. Well, it was a really unique experience for me because I'm all about the visuals, having worked for years in entertainment as a costume designer. So I'm like right in the world of that part of it, you know, but nobody knows what any of these characters in the podcast really looks like. It's totally up to your own imagination. And you know, and you don't really want to step on anybody's imagination, you know?
Yeah, it's sort of hilarious. We have an actress we've used many times who actually plays the little kid in Gabriel Born.
Yeah.
She's my friend's wife. She does the voice for ABC Mouse.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and at one point I cast her in something, I think as a little girl, and she said, just so you know, I do little boys too. And then she said, my husband has said I have to stop saying it like that. But she's just trying to explain, like, she's like, I'm just trying to explain that I can voice boys, you know, which is a very common thing for women to do voices of little boys.
Yeah, makes
But
sense.
just because she made that silly joke, it stuck in my mind. And we subsequently have cast her as a little boy in like a dozen different shows.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. A hook that that got you, you know, got her in some work. That's really funny. I like it. Yeah.
So when you're doing things like you you have to have a different sound for when somebody's thinking something than when somebody's saying something. How do you do that? How do you make it distinct like between, so that it doesn't sound like they're talking on their iPhone or like
It's
walking
a
around
whole
talking.
thing with the editors, yeah. So the editors they all have different preferences, right? So some of them, it's like a heavy reverb. So when we're into the internal thought of the person, for some people, it's more about the actor and how the actor is performing. But it's a big topic of discussion during the production and post-production process.
So everybody's got their own tricks.
Yes, and some people, it's like, oh, if you don't do it this way, like it's a whole thing, yeah, within this little space.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's certain do's for, let's say, science fiction that might be different for film noir.
Yeah, we did a sort of film noir-ish type of thing called Red Meat Village. That was very film noir, even though it was set in contemporary setting. And we got a colleague of mine who is a producer as well as an actor. He ended up voicing the main character in it. And yeah, the style of his vocal performance is doing a lot of the work there.
I looked Tony dead in his eyes and lied to his face. He drove off, certainly having committed multiple felonies. The murderer in the backseat who might be our best shot at finding destiny.
And it hit me. The whole goddamn scheme fell into place.
Aiming guns in my direction is a quick way to shorten your life expectancy, man.
Drop the gun.
Well, it's funny because I have a story that I've had in my mind for a really long time. And I was thinking about doing a screenplay because like Muriel, I'm all about the visual, but I also have been writing poetry for a long time. So I'm just, while I'm talking to you, I'm thinking, how would I write it if I didn't have the visual? When I write the whole story, it would all be about what the person's thinking and the communication, that you have to tell the whole story through communication.
I mean, in a way, there's a slight cheat code aspect to it, which makes it a little bit easier because you have direct access to that person's thoughts, right?
Right.
Whereas in screenwriting, you don't. So it can be a crutch, though, so you have to do it in a certain way. But in an ideal execution, it should be more intimate so that when you listen to a really great audio drama, you feel like you are that character. Like you are hearing what they hear, you're hearing what they think, you're really having their full emotional experience.
So most of the podcasts tend to be in that world. You hear a lot of thoughts and...
Yeah, well, when we started doing this, I listened to a whole bunch of them. And when I would listen to ones where they don't have that, I would think, why am I listening to this? Like, what is the difference between this and just like, this is just watching a TV show without visuals? Like, that's not, what is the appeal of this? So I always try to design it where it's like, what is unique to this form of storytelling? And I think that's something that is unique to it.
I think I need to listen to more because when I'm doing my needlepoint, or I'll put on like either a TV show I know everything that's going on, or it doesn't have too much visual action, or like an old movie where they all talk, so that I can keep my eyes on my needlepoint and I don't have to worry about it. But I'm just thinking podcast stories would be perfect for that.
I tell you what, there's a big film producer. Her name is Effie Brown. And I was talking to her recently, and because she was like, "Oh, I've listened to a bunch of your shows." And I was like, "Really?" I've sent her some, but like I more so than what I sent her. And she said, "Yeah, I do it when I knit."
Like, what would you say the difference between an audiobook and a podcast is?
Yeah, a huge difference, and it's a big thing that we stress to people about what we do. An audiobook typically is just that one person talking. Right. And the one person is kind of maybe doing some of the voices, but there's not really that sound design aspect.
Right.
And for us, the soundscape is the whole thing. That's all of it. Right. It's got to be like full cast, soundscape, full original score, all that stuff. That's the big difference. It's a really much more production heavy.
So if someone wanted to, let's say, get in the podcast business or do what you're doing, how would they start? Where would they start? Is there a school for that?
There's no school for that. I mean, you can teach yourself, a lot of this stuff. It's really just about the level of sweat equity you're willing to put into it, right? With what we do, we work with people and we sort of bring that whole process with us. But if you're a standalone creator, you can do it. It's just very laborious, So like I did one, so hilariously, I've done 56 of these things, right? But my own show, I only did a pilot. I have all the audio. I could have finished it, but just the labor of trying to teach myself how to edit it, I know would take me so long, and I just could never bring myself to do it. So it's just sitting somewhere on a hard drive. But that
Now
speaks
there's
to how
AI.
hard it
Maybe
is.
you should like give it a swipe through AI and see what the AI comes up with.
Yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't want to, only because, again, I love the like our great sound engineers. They're so obsessive about it. Like my editor will call me and he'll be like, "Hey, I did this thing. No one on planet Earth is going to even know that I did this, but I have to tell you about it because I was so excited." We did a sci-fi show, and he did fake sounds of birds because in this setting, birds no longer existed. But he invented, as part of the mythology of the world, that they would put fake sounds of birds in the background to make themselves feel like birds still existed. He just made that up. That was not something that's not in the script.
Wow.
He just came up with that on his own. So
Wow.
yeah, like that's where that human touch, I think, is so valuable.
Yeah, the genius of creativity is what we're talking about here. And I love that bird, no bird touch. It's really good. I mean, when I did the show Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill with Lynette McKee playing Billie Holiday, I put her in this like cream silk dress. And I was watching it. I just picked a color for whatever reason. And then I was watching the show one night and I realized, and she had this gardenia, she'd always have like a gardenia in her hair. And I looked at the dress and I thought, now I know why I picked that color. It's the color of a very aged, fading, almost falling off the vine gardenia. That was the color. And it just suddenly I went, oh, of course, that makes perfect sense now. So you just don't know. You kind of just have to be in that liminal creative space and let it happen and
No,
then
that's a
come
great
up.
point. Yeah, totally. There's so much stuff like that where it's like if you just, today I went to the Academy Museum where they have the Jaws exhibit, and I walked around and you can see they have script pages with Spielberg's notes, right? Where he's written like,
Great.
oh, you know what? Why don't we try this? And if you just get obsessed with something, your mind is kind of working in the workshop in the back while you're not even, actively trying to think about it, and you'll start coming up with stuff. So, yeah, it's like I think that's a huge part of it.
How much of what goes on in your shows was in the script versus came up like spontaneously as an idea when you were when you started recording?
Yeah, it's really in the sound design. So the script kind of has to say the script, right? But the sound design is where the originality comes from of the editor, where he's thought, oh, you know what? I should add this sound, and like he'll add something you would never have thought of. It's not on the page, but it adds to the atmosphere of the story.
So the scriptwriter doesn't put in sound cues or anything like that. They just kind of telling the story through the dialogue.
It depends on the writer. We've had situations where people are real heavy on that, but like just as a case in point, when I do it, because I know all these editors, I've done many, many shows with all of them. So if I'm writing one, I am pretty minimalist there because it's almost like we're working in tandem. I sort of know how they think, and they kind of know what my intentions are, and so I trust them to fill the canvas, sonically.
Are you working on something really exciting right now?
We have one that's going to come out in the fall. It's called Room 1D343. I'll Stop When They're Dead, and I think it's really good. It's always like I never want to say like, oh, it's my favorite show of the year because I don't want to disparage any of the other shows, but that's going to be my personal favorite show of the year.
Interesting. Can you give us like a teaser about what it's
Well,
about?
it's just an interesting thing of the creative process. So the book that it's based on is written by a former employee of the Pentagon, and it's about a former employee of the Pentagon nuking the Pentagon.
Oh my goodness.
So I said that might be a little
Literally nuking or
literally nuking the Pentagon. So I was like, that might be a little heavy that might be tough in this current day and age. So what we did instead was we flipped it where it's almost like The Equalizer. It's like a guy who works at the Pentagon and he's in like the logistics department, and his brother is like a hotshot Army Ranger guy. And his brother is serving in sort of the war zone between Russia and the Ukraine, and he's on some secret operation. And what happens is he is killed by his own military so that they can have plausible deniability of his secret operation, because otherwise it would like trigger World War III. And the brother who works in logistics finds out about it. And they kind of know that he found out, but they're not like that worried about him because he's sort of this like, basically like nerdy type of guy, right? He's the guy who works in logistics. And he says, he says at the end of the first episode, basically, I'm going to kill every single one of them, everybody who was involved.
Right.
And so the rest of the show is him trying to murder like the Joint Chiefs of Staff
my
and the Secretary of Defense. It's pretty crazy.
Well, that sounds very exciting. Sounds like it will be a television show.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like The Equalizer. It's sort of like Men on Fire. I think it could be good fodder for a movie as well. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm gonna push it really hard, and we're always chasing. It's so difficult to get it to hit #1 of all fiction podcasts. #2, we've done it numerous times, but #1 we've only done it 3 times. So I'm always chasing that. That's like and there's one show in particular that always is #1. And I know those guys really well, and I frequently tease them. I'm like, I'm coming for you. Like,
So who's always #1?
It's a show called Table Read.
I've seen it. Yeah. It was to #1 when my
probably
mine was up there. Yeah.
It's what they do is they bring a bunch of people in and then they record a table read. So it's different than what we do.
Scripts.
It's similar in a sense because it has sound design and stuff, but it's a different procedure of how they do it.
Well, just to go back a little bit, you talked about The Equalizer. I worked on The Equalizer with Edward Woodward back in the beginning, back then in the wardrobe department. And we would laugh every time we got a new script. The first thing we would do is we'd start flipping over to page 55 and find out exactly where on page 55 he would say, "Put the gun down." It always landed right there.
It was always on page 55?
Pretty much, yeah.
Muriel, did you ever see The Wolf of Wall Street?
I did, yes.
Do you recall the scene when Rob Reiner gets very upset that he's going to miss The Equalizer?
Oh, no, I don't remember that.
There's a scene when he gets a phone call and he says, every week, and they curse a lot in The Wolf of Wall Street, every week I wait all goddamn week for the fucking Equalizer. And then so he's furious that he's going to, and then he gets up and his wife says, "You're going to miss it." He says, tell me something I don't know. And then he answers the phone.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and then he hangs up the phone. He's still mad that he missed it. She's like, "Oh, you missed it." He's like,
Yeah, and this new generation will have no idea what we're really talking about because they're completely unhinged to time frames. You can watch.
So they'll remember the Denzel Equalizer, which is not doesn't really have a ton to do with the TV show apart from the concept.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we grew up in the pre-TiVo era even. I think TiVo was the first thing that came out where you could record your shows, right?
I think so. I don't think I had it.
Well, interestingly enough, I interviewed the guy who wrote all the Equalizer movies.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about, so, it's like, you're a connection to the TV show, The Equalizer. I talked to the guy who did the Equalizer movies. I like that I am somehow connected to all iterations of The Equalizer.
You've done film, you've done podcast. Are you going to stick with this? Moving on to something else? You have a personal project you're working on? What's going on?
I just finished my first book.
Oh, cool.
It took me 4 years to write it. So now I'm sort of venturing into that world.
What's it about?
It's called We Live Amongst the Clouds, and it's about basically if the way I like to sum it up is like, imagine if right now we had a nuclear war, like, across the globe, like somebody nukes China, China nukes America, America nukes Russia, whatever. And while that's happening, someone has built a solar-powered platform that can go up into the sky above all the radiation and be self-sustaining. You could live up there safely. And so imagine that person is, some tech billionaire person. And they tell the scientists who've built this thing, hey, this is just for me. And the scientists say no and just shoot that person in the face and take the platform and go up there. And then 32 years pass, right? Because it's not safe to go down. The world is like a nuclear apocalypse. And our story begins 32 years after, where we're just on this platform and there's people living there that were born on there that have never seen the ground, and they have a whole society. And now the radiation has subsided, and it's actually safe to go back down to the ground. But not everybody's going to get to go.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting premise.
All right,
You
I
know,
want to read it. Sounds good.
I read a series of books, and I now I think Apple TV is doing is running it. I think the first of the series is called Silo,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
everybody's in
I
a
knew you were talking
silo
about
underground. I read all
that.
three of the books; they were great. But it's kind of the same premise. They're living in a silo that goes deep down underground, and they're, surviving
Yeah, it was
underground and
my
trying to
direct
figure out if they can
inspiration.
go out.
Yeah.
So I actually interviewed the guy who created that, whose name is Hugh Howey, and I interviewed him about the first season of Silo, and I said, there was a moment in the first season where I thought that the big twist was going to be that they weren't underground; they were really high up in the sky. I thought that was going to be the twist, and then I liked my own idea so
Yeah,
much that I just kept thinking about it,
great.
and then I did this whole completely different thing.
There is a film with that kind of a world, and I can't remember what it's called, but there's basically monsters running around on the earth and killing everybody, and then the elites live on up in the sky.
Oh,
But
the monsters were the product of radiation over
probably,
generations, probably.
yeah, I can't remember the name of it. But
I would be interested to watch that movie.
yeah, if I can remember it, I'll send you the information on it. But
I love all that stuff. I love like post-apocalyptic stories and zombie stories.
anything that's zombie just it loses me. I was trying to figure out, where did they come from? How did they get that way? What do they do between times when they're walking like a monster, you know?
I have a friend like that, and his feedback on the book, he was like, "Why didn't they build a railing around the circumference of the city?"
Uh, Simple questions.
That was hilarious.
Well, if you want someone to go over the edge, they can still go over the edge of the railing.
Well, yeah. I mean, my argument was that construction was not complete. They weren't able to, before the apocalypse. But
They
yeah,
had to rush and get it up there before it was too late.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, the other thing that about science fiction that the reason I went from what I did with my book was I wanted to go for a future where there's a spiritual evolution for mankind, to intimate that that could happen. Because I read so much science fiction. Our dad had boxes of science fiction when we were in high school, and I read it all. I read
Me
everything,
too.
all the good stuff, all the way into the real dreck. And it was always the same, like could be 3,000 years in the future, and people are still functioning with the same mindsets that we function with today. They're still having the same fights. They may be half human, half cat, half human, half cow, kind of, because the evolution went that direction, but the brain is still the same and the emotional states are all the same. So I always want to see what could happen, how could humanity evolve and become something else,
Frank Herbert Dune books were all kind of, I mean, the whole evolving with the land, and the
yeah.
spice. That was all very there was some spiritual aspect to it.
love Dune.
Yeah.
Me
Huge,
too.
huge Dune
Me
fan.
too. I think I
The
read
first
Dune a
movie,
half a dozen
people
times.
funny enough, the first movie people were like, "Oh, a little slow," and I was like, "No, the first movie is the one I like better."
I read the book before either of the movies came out, and I read it a few times. So there was a lot of like excitement for me when the movie came out. I was a little disappointed with both of them, to be honest with you. But I think that happens when you read the book first. You have your own idea about what it's going to be. You have the imagination, and that's what's so cool about like the audio podcast is you leave that door open for people to have their imagination and visualize what they're reading or what they're hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a big writing lesson to always keep in mind too, because you can fall into the trap of you're just explaining stuff to people. And the less you explain, the more people lean forward. The more you explain, the more people lean back and just like, okay, I got it. You know?
That's very interesting. And you got to really be aware of that line somehow.
Yeah, because it's hard. Your natural instinct is like, well, I'll just tell them, what's going on. And it's like, no, you don't want to do that, because then they don't really need to be there. If you're telling them exactly what's going on, you could just be by yourself, right? The audience is there to interact with this thing you've created. You got to leave room for them to interact with it. If it's just dictated to them, then it becomes like a classroom lecture, like we're writing on the chalkboard, which nobody really wants that.
Well, I think that when times are difficult for people, they want to escape into something that's fantasy. I was just telling Muriel, just when you came on, we were talking about podcasts and, listening to story podcasts, because I listen to way too many political podcasts, and it gets me all wound up. So I'm thinking maybe I should delve into some of these podcast stories and, escape for a while.
Well, what I like about science fiction is that you can smuggle it in. So it's still about something. And a lot of times it's about something that's very pertinent to what's going on in our world. But through the lens of science fiction, there's a distance from it. So you can just take it for what it is, surface level, but you're probably still getting the weight of what it's really about.
Yeah, like Fahrenheit 451, perennially relevant. It's, I mean, so many of these science fictions from the 40s and 50s.
Yes. 1984.
Yeah.
If you just roll forward what's going on in the world, you can go into any number of different paths towards a future that would be interesting to write about. Not necessarily pleasant, but interesting.
Yeah.
Keep them in the fiction. Let's keep that all in fiction, right?
Yeah. Yes.
No one wants to live in the world of Game of Thrones and White Walkers. I just don't want to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting time. Whenever the world is a certain way, it's like you're told, oh, you should really write these kinds of stories. And I think often people still want something of substance. But that's why genre is great, because you can sneak it in.
Yeah. Yeah. So mostly you do fiction podcasts. Are you doing anything that's...
I've done quite a bit of true crime. Yeah.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. So that's a whole separate life where I investigate murders and things of that nature.
Really?
I used to listen to a murder podcast, two women, My Favorite Murder, I think it was called.
Oh yeah, huge.
They're
hit in the
very
podcast
funny
world.
ladies, very funny. They would basically present a story.
A true crime?
A true crime, yes.
Wow.
But they were comedians. They would bring some lightness to it, which was really a talent when you think about it.
Yeah, I'm not interested in crime. Those murders, certainly not. I mean, no, actually, I lie. I'm a big liar because I love British television. We're English, Dan. So, I love watching a lot of those, like, English cop shows. They just do them so well.
Oh,
And
they do them great. Yeah.
in little tiny villages where there's like it takes them 7 murders to finally catch the guy.
The comfy ones where everything's all nice.
It's
You
very
never
cozy.
see any blood.
It's like,
Cozy, yes,
it's
cozy.
like,
That's the word.
it's the most
the bodies
pleasant.
under the flowers in the garden.
Everybody's
Yeah,
having
like
tea. It's like, yeah, it's nice.
Midsummer Murders. I always used to joke, if I move back to England, I'm not moving to Midsummer because there's too many murders in that town.
Well, I find myself driving around here in Connecticut. This is the beautiful New England countryside. And I quite often, like a friend of mine, she does upholstery for like a mansion that's near here. And I went to drop her off at one point. So I'm sitting outside that house and I'm thinking, God, this house would be perfect to stage an Agatha Christie like murder in Connecticut. Maybe I should write something and start, shooting in the neighborhood. And
One of our
Inspired by a house.
one of our podcasts was in this very, very specific genre, and the producer had to explain it to me. It's murder mysteries, but it's for like Hallmark. So it's like, yes, someone is murdered, but like the vibe is more light.
why do we enjoy these so much? They did a spot on SNL about boomers and their murder mysteries, and
Was that the one where it was like shows that your mom watches or something?
maybe it might have been,
I
yeah.
think it was one where it was like, and then on the screen they explain what the plot is every 5 minutes just in case you've forgotten or something like that.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes I need that because I'm scrolling at the same time as I'm trying to watch a show, which is really stupid, you
Well,
know?
that's the big challenge that we have now as storytellers is like, can you keep people engaged, without looking at their phone? It's a
Yeah.
real challenge that we all have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
I catch myself doing that too, like flipping through Instagram while I'm watching a TV show, and I'm like, why am I doing that?
yeah,
It's like
I do it a
I'll
lot.
hold it up here so that just in case something changes on the screen, I can flip back up and see it. I'm like, wait a second, do I have to do two things at once, even when I'm on vacation or at the end of my day?
But I think it goes back to what I was saying before about explaining stuff. If the audience understands, oh, this is a show where they're going to explain stuff to me, then they don't have to really pay attention. But if you go the other way and the audience understands, oh, if I don't pay attention, will have no idea what's going on. That's the way you can sort of pressure the audience. Like, no, you got to put the phone down, like, or otherwise there's no point in watching
You're
this.
gonna miss it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
And that's like the serious English cop shows where you really do have to follow everything that's going on. If you miss it, and then if it's a Scottish one, you've got to put the subtitles on because even us English can't understand what they're saying.
yeah. Yeah. So when you're dealing with a podcast, um, you're still worrying about the challenge of people scrolling at the same time
Totally.
because they're listening. So they might think, oh, I don't have to I can look because I'm listening to this, I can look, but still you're gonna miss stuff.
I mean,
So
I assume people are driving,
yeah,
doing weeding, cleaning at the garage, like stuff like that. So to me, I
knitting.
always tell people, don't get hung up on the plot. Like people get very hung up on the plot and like, oh, we got to explain this and this and that.
Yeah.
The guy who actually wrote all the Equalizer movies, he told me, when I interviewed him, he said the plot is white noise. The audience does not care about the plot. The plot is irrelevant to the audience. The thing that they care about is the character and the emotion. So if the character and the emotion, just keep hitting that, right? And try to keep the plot unobtrusive. Like if you get into where you're explaining a lot of complicated plot, you're going to lose people. You got to stay on what is the character, what is the emotion. William Goldman had this line where he said, I just try to find the story and stay on the story and just keep on it the whole way through. And I didn't really understand what he meant for many years. And now I understand it. And what he was saying was, your story is not the plot. It's, hey, it's a father trying to reconnect with his daughter or whatever the core emotional thing of the text is. That's the story, right? And you got to stay on that emotional line the whole way through. And if you deviate from that, that's when you're going to lose people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about Sugar, which you haven't seen yet, but there's a core thing in that. It won't hurt you're watching it at all to say that it's about his sister. It's like reconnecting with his sister. We don't really see. So, um, so it drives everything
Kind
else
of
that
like
he does.
Andor was like that too.
I loved Andor. That is the best series on television.
Extraordinary. I'm sad that I like have watched it. You know what I mean? Like I'm sad I
Yeah.
can't like rewatch it for the
Watch
first
it
time.
again.
You
I
can
watched it
watch it
twice.
again. I've
Yeah, it's
watched it
so
again.
good.
I watched it again, and I finished it, and then I thought, darn, I think I have to start it again.
Dan, I have a question for you. You were just talking about about staying on the story and staying, staying on the story all the way through, but like hitting with the emotion and the did you bring that to your book? Did you bring skills and things you've learned from the podcast to writing your book?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, the book is basically like all these different characters, and all of them are trying to figure out, like, can we, is it possible to have like a harmonious society, basically? But they're all at different points of power within the society, right? So there's the person who's the lowest and the person who's the highest. And over the course of the novel, they flip. So whoever is the highest by the end of the story will be the lowest, and whoever's the lowest by the end of the story will be the highest. And so that was hopefully a way of like keeping it really clear, like where everybody's coming from emotionally.
Ah, a Wheel of Fortune flip.
Mm,
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. I remember seeing another uh, a science fiction show where they were out in the desert and cities were like these mobile. They have these mobile cities, and
Yeah,
they
I
had
never
a
saw it, but I know
whole.
what you're talking about. It's
You
like
know the one I'm talking about? I
it's
can't
got some
remember what it was
funky
called.
title, like Mortal Instruments or something, or
Something
Mortal
like that.
Engines.
Yeah, they were all like cities would fight each other. They were
Yeah,
these big
it's
moving cities on wheels out in the desert.
it's a really
That
cool concept. It's like very punk rock.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about that when you were talking about your cities in the sky. Was it one city or more than one?
One
Excuse me.
city, and then they eventually used some scrap metal to build a little floating prison that's right next to it.
Oh yeah, you don't want them on the same platform.
Yeah. So,
Not
and
not
then
those
those guys are the
judges.
guys who tried to take over the city.
Got it.
Ah, wow.
Got it.
Hopefully, the book will be a huge success. Then the movie will be a huger success
Maybe it'll be a podcast
or
first.
series.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just hope I can. It's so interesting because it's so. I'm sure Muriel, you probably went through this too. It's like it's the traditional publishing. There's an appeal to it, but it's such a lengthy process to get there. It's years of like, all right, spend a year getting the book agent, then spend another year getting the publisher, then they got to set it up. I mean, that's not, and then
I
the
gave up on that.
self
Yeah.
publishing 2 seconds. So it's
Yeah.
so tempting. I am frequently tempted to self-publish it, but I
Yeah.
think I'm going to keep trying to see what happens to traditional publishing a little longer before I
I
decide what I'm
had
going to
some
do.
really great references from people who were really successful writers, wrote me, introductory letters to several agents and just never even bothered to call me back or anything. So finally, ultimately, I said, okay, I'm just going to publish it. But I realized I think there was a lot of things that I missed that I didn't think of going to like a book fair, like go to like a pitch fair, a pitch fest or something
Yeah.
like I would recommend I think it's the Writer's Digest does a pitch fest or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'm stubborn, so I'll send it to every book agent on planet Earth before that's my like East Coast, chip on my shoulder.
Good.
It's almost like I'm a guy from Boston, even though I'm not actually from Boston. Like I just have that mentality a little bit.
I have that
So
reputation there, I guess.
yeah,
Too.
we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see where we end up with that.
Well, good luck with it. I don't know if you have any further tips for people who want to just be creative in this field or any
You got to
field.
just go make stuff. Yeah, I mean, just go make something that can reach an audience, regardless of what it is. Especially now, go make a series of TikTok short, 60-second videos or something.
Yeah.
But just keep making things. Don't just kind of write your opus and hope it works out. Like you gotta actually create things that an audience can consume that are multimedia in some fashion. I think that's a big thing that everybody who's creative should be doing.
Yeah. And what do you think about the looming monster of AI?
We're contending with it all the time now, where people are like, oh yeah, the AI, we can tell immediately. Immediately you can tell. You can tell in video immediately. You can tell in writing immediately. And the audience doesn't like it because the audience
Yeah,
can tell. The
I
audience
cannot
is
stand
turned
that
off by it.
stuff.
Yeah, they
When
feel
you hear a story that's like narrated by AI, you can always tell. It's like they leave the last word of the sentence hanging and start the new sentence with. It's like somebody forgot to teach AI about punctuation.
it's so good at so many different things. And it may come to a place where it's almost impossible to tell, but I don't think it will ever have the idiosyncrasy of humans. I just don't think it's possible. So yeah, I think it will go the other way, specifically in entertainment. In every other form of our life, it's going to completely dominate our existence. But in entertainment, I think it's going to go the other way. And people are going to say, hey, this movie was made without AI, or this book was made without AI, and it's going to be a thing people actually look for.
And from what I understand, it gets harder and harder to protect your content from being swept up, from being mined for for AI.
It's a shame we have to do that. There needs to be an overall privacy act. But we're not talking about politics. So anyway, well, thank you, Dan. How could people reach you? You have Instagram or website or
Um, I think I am on Instagram under Dan B Makes Things. I think that's my Instagram handle.
great. All right, I'm gonna find you.
It's
And
Danby underscore makes underscore things.
I
there
think
we go.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right
Oh,
now.
there you go. All right, great. Well, we've confirmed it. This
Great,
shows you how carefully I pay attention to my Instagram.
great,
But
great.
the one thing that is kind of nice about that, I mean, because I'm involved in a lot of different stuff, but if there's something that I actually post about on there, that's when you know it's like, oh, this is real serious. Like, this is something I think is like rocket fuel.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
great. All right, we're gonna have to follow you then. Good. So thank you so much for joining us here. And good luck with the book.
Yes,
Thanks. I
good
appreciate
luck.
it.
I'm
Uh,
going to keep my eye open for it.
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll see.
So we are Abracadabra Sisters, Muriel and Sharon, and we'll catch you on the next round.